Yes.
And we'll call the city council workshop, November 2nd to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Allison.
Here.
Tom Bailey.
Here.
Kathy Sherman. Here. Jeff Guard.
Here.
Melina Meyer. Absent. Ann Schaefer. Here. Kristen Carpenter is absent. And Ken Jones is absent. Yes. Quorum of council.
Here, work session topic tonight is the 2023 city budget preparations. Howard.
Thank you, everyone. I sent you the first draft budget, which includes all revenue and expenses as anticipated at this moment in time. And with us here tonight are department heads representing each of the various categories of expenses and revenue, and also the school district is here to discuss their budget. What I'd like to do is just start by laying a little bit of a framework. I asked department heads to create budgets looking at current year budget and prior year budgets and anticipate needs that they would have to do the work that's expected of them from city council as well as the public. So there were no constraints put upon them, although I will say that every department head was very cognizant of the fact that they didn't want to put their budgets out of whack and didn't want huge increases, but they want to be reflective of what their needs are. So that is what you're seeing in front of you. And as you all know, city government runs on people. So most of the increases reflected in this budget are directly related to the cost of labor, whether it's the collective bargaining agreement that we passed last year and the increases that are there for representative employees, as well as needed step increases to bring city in line with labor needs for our exempt workforce who haven't had any kind of a raise for quite a while. So again, most of the large increases that you're seeing are related to the most substantial piece of the budget, which is labor and the cost of the people that are doing the city's work. Secondly, there are a few positions that have been added, mostly in relationship to positions that were unfilled or unfunded, and also positions that really are needed to keep the city operational and the departments operational. In addition, obviously there's been inflationary cost increases, so we're seeing increases in fuel and increases in supplies and all those sorts of things. Those are something we can't really influence other than in being really careful in our consumption of those things. So again, the department heads went through and created budgets that they felt was reflective of looking at this year's numbers, where things are lying, and anticipated increases for next year that were being forwarded on to us by vendors. The other kind of substantial things of note is there's a $300,000 distribution to CCMC. That number is not for operations as much as it is for repairs and maintenance of the city-owned building, things that are problematic. Last year they used resources to replace boiler, and there are other things like that that periodically come up. I think CCMC has been pretty clear that they're running really tight, but they're not losing money. And then the other thing is the school district contribution is in the budget at $2 million. And again, all of these things are subject to your input and direction. And then the final thing I'm going to let you know is that we do have just over $300,000 in matching requirements for the 2nd Street and Whiteshed Road projects that are getting ready to kick off here. It's a contractual commitment that we made, and those numbers are reflected also in the budget. So without further ado, what I'd like to do, if the body agrees, is let each department speak a little bit about what they're doing and what the budget numbers explain them a little bit, and then have you ask whatever questions you have around that. And hopefully we can move through the various departments and get a general sense of what this budget in front of you is about, and give you some grounding so that you can start making decisions about how you want to direct staff to proceed. And
ask an overall clarifying question first. The expenses that exceed anticipated revenue by $600,000, that does include the white shed and the Second Street matches?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
I will say that if you read the footnote, the budget is kind of a wash in that regard, because what I did do is took $308,542 and looked at restricted funds that could potentially pay for that. You may decide to expend that differently, but I added ARPA funds of $308,542 to repay that, so it wouldn't come out of our general fund. So it's not like the Second Street White Shed Road adds $308,000 to that deficit. It doesn't, because it's zeroed out with revenue at this point in time.
So it's already zeroed out in that 600,000.
Yeah.
So it's 600,000 not including.
Yes.
The white shed.
If we added, if we did use ARPA funds, then the deficit would be in the $900,000 range.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, the budget stays as is, how would you make up $600,000?
Well, there's some unallocated revenue. The last week's work session on the table are prior year school bond debt reimbursements that have been funded already out of the general fund. What we do with those, it can be used to replace the general fund. It can be used for any number of things, including paying for the cost of the general fund for FY23. The other thing is that there's ARPA funds that have to be used for revenue replacement. We still have, if there's about $575,000 that needs to be allocated at some point in some way by council. I was recommending that $308,000 of that could be used to pay for the Second Street and White Shed Road matches, leaving about $266,000 that could be allocated towards this deficit. That doesn't, of course, make up the difference. 600 minus 265 is still leaves a number on the table. The other thing is we have not addressed any revenue. We haven't looked at the fee schedules. We haven't allocated any increases into these budgets. And we also are reading property tax number the same as last year. So there are some pots that can be considered by council to make up the deficit there, and certainly, you could make it a general fund distribution, I guess, as well. So it's really just your appetite for how to proceed.
Well, I understand we can pull the money basically out of the bank to pay this, but we're running on the deficit. We need to figure out how to pay for this going forward, how to take the money out of the bank. $600,000. We're talking mill rates, sales tax. What do we get out of one mill? We have a cost. We would be looking at approximately 2.5 mils to balance that.
If you use exclusively tax revenues,
What other options do we have?
there's,
Other than, I mean, not counting the money that we got to go to whatever that goes over there. Not taking money out of our bank account. Balance our budget coming in and going out. We have to go sales tax and property tax.
right, and I think one of the things that I think we all have to consider is to buy us time to make adjustments. No one has had the opportunity to breathe even with all these inflationary pressures that everyone's feeling. One day we have a $32 million harbor project, and 6 months later it's a $42 million harbor project. I think the city and individuals in our community are feeling those same pressures. One day you're paying, $4 for eggs, and now it's whatever. And I think that's a reality that we have to face now, and with some hope that there might be more stability as we proceed into the coming year. And I think the onus is on all of us to figure out ways to tighten our belts, obviously, but also look for new revenue opportunities. And one of the big things that all of us at the city are looking at now is opportunities for projects that will hit our community. Hopefully, we'll be able to take advantage of the resources, and with that, allocate a portion of any grant funding towards general administration, which will help bridge gaps into the future. We don't have those grants on the ground yet, but we're actively pursuing them, and that is an opportunity that will help bridge funding gaps. So if I may, then I would like to start having our department heads come, and I think probably what makes the most sense is we can just do it based on a page in the budget. But I want to start with Alex Rustin, who is with the school, and he has a specific ask of council, which would be factored into this conversation.
I don't have anything necessarily prepared to present. I'm happy to ask questions, but hopefully you all received the letter dated October the 25th from me that sort of looked at what our ask was for our FY24, which I think in my 8 years here, we've all looked at each other during these times of budget development and said, the city's budget starts January 1st and goes through December 31st, and the school district starts on July 1st. And so there's an overlap of time in which sort of both of our fiscal years operate. So I guess I would just going to refer to my letter here real quick. So we are in the first part of our FY23 school year, and you are in the tail end of your FY22 city year. And I think it was back in June, if I'm not mistaken, the council at the time, but the council approved to allocate a certain resources for the district, and that came in right around $2 million or so. So what we would be looking at for the first part of your budget, starting January 1st, would be the remainder of the allocation that was taken into consideration by council at that time. And so for us, I think that number, Helen, if I'm not mistaken, is just over $1.1 million. And so that would kind of finish out our fiscal year based on that June determination that the city council took action on back in June. And then I did provide a little bit of information as to our FY24 request which would be the tail end of your budget for next year. And so, really based on whatever that allocation is by the city, we would just be looking to receive part or close to half of that fund to get you through the last part of your fiscal year and start us off the first part of our fiscal year, which would be starting June 30th, or starting July 1st.
And excuse me, I'm just going to reference for those of you, it's page 6 of the regular council packet. Here's the letter from the school district, page 6, 7, 8, 6 and 7.
And as City Manager Howard mentioned, we're all facing increased costs and charges and things like that. And I was having a conversation with Helen a couple weeks ago, and just by way of example, we order things just like everybody else in town, whether you're a resident or an organization. And I was looking to approve an invoice that was $1,500 for goods coming out of Anchorage. And the shipping charge on that was $500, and there was a fuel surcharge of $800. So $1,300 on the $1,500 order was quite significant. And as an organization, we can't anticipate those types of increases, I guess you might say. We can't anticipate them. My crystal ball is a bit cloudy these days, and so just like everyone else, we're having challenges on figuring out how to operate, within the parameter of our existing budget. And we're out looking for grants. We're using our monies to backfill different things and to even pay ahead for curriculum purchases and resources that are outside of our normal operations, so that we can move some funds to pay for these unanticipated expenses, in particular fuel costs and shipping costs. So, I've come to the city council a number of times in my 8 years here, and I've said to members seated and others that I need to advocate for what we need. I think I'm in a good position to really determine, along with staff, students, and our school board, what those needs are. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, or to listen. Anything you might have to offer for us to kind of go back and contemplate and think through on how we can provide you with information and help you make decisions on what the allocations ultimately are. I would just add, maybe, Mr. Mayor, before any questions come up, I included a couple of graphs in the letter that I sent, which Helen mentioned is in the packet. When you look at the cost of inflation as far back as 2011, the base student allocation, which is referred to as the BSA, right now in state statute, that dollar amount is $5,930. And when you take inflation into account, the value of that, or the purchasing power of that, is about $5,030. So, today's base student allocation is less than the value of the dollar 10 years ago. We all know that today's dollar don't buy the same things as what it once did, but that's where we are.
Questions for Alex?
And just to be clear, there's $2 million of static funding in the proposed budget, and the school's ask is 2.296 and change.
So that will be for our FY24 budget, which is the last half of your budget that you're contemplating. We're looking at for this year, the January 1 to December 31.
You anticipate the max the cap?
Yeah, based on that number is right around the cap, give or take a few $1,000s. And for us, when I come to the city council with a number, right, we're looking at more than a year out as to kind of what our fiscal, I guess, situation will be. Um, we just finished up our what's called our October count, and it's a 20-day count period in October, based on what the enrollment is in the district. And we won't know until January of 2023, early on, how much money we're actually getting from the state as part of our state entitlement. So, anybody who's run a business or balanced a home checkbook, we're operating 6 months of the year, half of our year, on a hope and a prayer, really, that the funding is going to come through like what we project. So it is challenging and stressful at times. Our school board is in a similar situation of the administration bringing forth a budget that's balanced, and if the revenue isn't there to support that, then we have some hard decisions to make as well.
How did your counts go as far as trend lines, or what is it, increasing 5%, decreasing? But
Yeah, we're up this year right now of about 20 students or so. So we'll see a little bit of a bump in our state entitlement for this year, but we're probably still not at a point where it's going to be a break even in terms of other increase of goods and services that we're experiencing now. So yeah, we won't know what that official number is until January, but again, preliminary numbers, we're looking at 20 or 22 students more, which is a good thing. We're running out of space at the elementary school, but it's definitely a good trajectory. We're seeing an increase. Coming out of the pandemic, we had quite a number of students that were being homeschooled, and we only get through our school district program. And so we saw a loss in revenue for the students who sort of went to the homeschool program. They don't get the same level of funding, or we don't receive the same level of funding for homeschool students. But kind of our brick and mortar students. It's not a terrible difference in the amount, but nonetheless, we had 35 kids being homeschooled the year before last. So we're seeing kids back in school. Right now, we have about 5 students just taking homeschool. We're seeing that brick and mortar enrollment coming.
a lot of little in this town.
Yeah.
Any questions? What's the latest on the preschool situation, possibilities, maybe kids,
I think the analogy that I've used with the school board is, it's still in the kitchen. The topic is still in the kitchen. It's not quite on the front burner, but it's definitely in the kitchen. And we're looking at grant opportunities and other opportunities to partner. I think it may be a bigger community conversation to have. Is that the school obviously is the natural sort of, organization to run an education program, right? But there are other resources in town that we would love to be partners with in establishing a preschool program. And some of those organizations have access to either different or more revenue sources than what we as a public school can access. So, and again, our board had a great conversation a couple board meetings ago, and I presented to them some of the needs, some of the challenges in terms of operating a preschool program. There's a national teacher shortage happening right now. We've got one teaching position that's unfilled, and a special education teacher at our elementary school. So we are in dire straits when it comes to employees and substitutes and permanent staff. So it's quite a bit of effort to recruit and retain teachers. So that's a challenge. Space, as I said, all of our classrooms at the elementary school are plumb full. And so taking a look at where we might operate a preschool program is a consideration. Our playground, for example, is not to codes and standards to have for preschool age students. And so, the question comes, do we get preschool aged playground equipment, and where do the resources come for that? And, I've heard lots of people say, well, you used to operate a preschool program with that same equipment. Why do you need more? Why do you need different? Well, now we know better. And as a school leader, I can't conceivably move forward knowing what I know in terms of legal applications and requirements for the safety of students. Now I know better. So, those types of things need to be taken into consideration as well. So.
Yeah, well, that's disappointing here because we just redid that playground a couple of years ago. And the question I would have is why wasn't that addressed at that point? I think I can speak for almost everybody in the community. I support K-12 education, but not so much of the preschool. I've been in other communities, small communities our size, and because this issue has come up, I kind of looked into it. And two of the communities I looked at, communities about our size, they've reached out to nonprofits and businesses, and they use the school facilities, but that's what's funding the program. Of course, we've got nonprofits here, we've got families that fishing families. I think perhaps looking for some support donations in those areas probably more appropriate. But it seems to be working in the community, so that's on my note.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Baylor, for that. So, minimally, staffing to just staff a preschool program is around $200,000. That doesn't take into account other related needs, and that's with one certified teacher and maybe 2 support personnel. And we need to maintain a people to teacher ratio at about 8 students per 1 adult in a program. That 1 adult doesn't necessarily always have to be a certified teacher, but those are things we take into consideration as well.
Okay. Jeff, is Jesse one want to? Kristen, Jeff, anything to add or questions for Alex?
No questions here.
No questions. I'm just listening, sorry, to the discussion about preschool and thinking that it's not just a one-time budget commitment. Like if the school tries to do it, then it's going to be something that it needs to know it can fund for year after year, not just a one-time deal. So I realize the importance of it, and I think we definitely want to see what we can do in the way of community solutions, but it sounds like we're not quite there yet. But thanks for the presentation, Alex.
Advocating at the state level with any legislators that you might know about pre-K-12. There are lots of states that are looking at that model and that sort of application of education, and important that kids have the best experience they can and starting off this.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is go through departments and be mindful of the fact that got folks here who probably want to go home. I'm going to skip over city council, city clerk, city manager, and finance, which are topics we can discuss perhaps at later portion of this meeting if we have time, and go directly then down the list on page 7 with the planning department. We'll do planning and the planning commission, and then heads up to staff. We'll move into law enforcement, B&B, jail operations, and then fire. we'll just keep going down the list. So thank you. Kevin Johnson is our city planner, and I can give you these. So maybe you could just give an overview of your department, what you're thinking, and then if council has any questions, they can be addressed. Again, please keep in mind that these are early draft. There are actually some modest minor errors in some of the numbers that we found, nothing that will materially impact that large $600,000+ deficit. But Kevin can just speak in general about the kind of vision for the department and big projects that are coming up, and answer any questions. Just give an overview.
Yeah, sure. As for my budget, the operating expenses and those sort of things, I didn't make any increases to any of those, along with the planning commission. Based on the progress we made on the topics that we worked on this year, I didn't anticipate needing any, any large increases to get any of the projects done for next year, which is mostly, we're going to be looking at zoning code changes and a lot of things that we can handle in-house. And so at this time, I just don't have any large requests.
It's an easy one.
For some of these larger commercial, Point Road and other projects like that, they require permitting. I guess what I'm getting at is, what is it, it's $25 for a building permit?
Yeah, the cost of our building permits are definitely on the lower end, but we also have to reflect that the true service that we provide with those building permits. You know, we're not doing inspections. We haven't, hired an inspector or trained anybody to be an inspector. I mean, that's definitely something that I think would be a huge value to the community, is having a certified inspector. Then people doing projects in town don't have to have the expense of flying somebody in to do that, especially if they're trying to get financing for those projects. But, realistically, when it comes to time commitment, the cost of our permits, while low, probably truly reflect the service that's being provided. I would say that the subdivision fees could maybe be raised slightly, just because those do take a little bit more time. But again, I don't think I was thinking
more of the commercial, especially in my Shepherd Point Road. This is don't have too much going on, but
yeah, I mean, again, if they give an industrial permit, which I think is like $400.
okay, so there already is a difference.
Yeah. Building permit, I believe, is 100 or 125, and then I think it just goes up in 100 increments from residential, multifamily, commercial, and then industrial.
Okay, I guess for my part, if there's something that you're doing that you see like you're having a lot of time and you get $10 to do it, bring it to us and let's change.
Yeah, no, definitely, I appreciate that, and I think once we start looking at some of the fee schedule increases, there may be some things that I come to propose at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think he basically has presented a balanced, easy budget for us, no increases. I also think that there are some opportunities for us to consider the future, but we're not proposing at this time. But the planning department definitely could be in a position of being a bit more robust in the services it offers, and as he said, warrant a different fee schedule. All right. Chief, are you here? I guess he is. There you are. Chief Andrew Goss, speak to any questions you might have, but you can introduce some of the things that influence the budget numbers in front of you in this department.
Just kind of start off with the DMV. We hired just recently a part-time, full-time, it's part-time to be working 5 days 6 hours a day, or like from 11 to 3 or something like in that area where people can come and get stuff done. That's a huge concern in the community of like people get the titles or what have you. So we did that in the community. On the law enforcement side, hoping that we can fill our 2 spots that we need to be filled, just like everywhere else, with short numbers. So I added that into the budget along with training, travel, equipment, the uniform safety equipment supplies. It's up a little bit, but that's because we need to get AEDs replaced in our squad vehicles. The ones we have are currently expired. In the jail, I increased some or back to law enforcement on equipment or repairs and maintenance, just cost of inflation. Some repairs to where we're stationed at and vehicles. On the jail side, kind of the same thing. It's for training for our dispatchers who are also correctional certified. Trainings. That's a big thing in our vision is to make sure we're all up to speed of our trainings. That's where a lot of some or not a lot of some of my increases are.
And if I might add, one of the things that motivated some of the personnel changes, especially at DMV, is that we were consistently, more often than we wanted to be, out of compliance with the state contract. They require a certain number of open hours, and if we now have, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, we now have 2 people who are cross-trained that can do that job. So if one's on vacation, we're not shutting down DMV and not following the state contract. So this will help alleviate that. It will better serve the community, and it's a good solution that the department has come up with.
Well, I guess the same questions I sort of asked the planner is that DMV, are those rates set by the state? Is there any, do they have any room to increase some of the fees so we could cover some of the costs?
That's something that I can look at and I'll look into more. I was gonna, and forgive me, I was gonna plan, that have answers for you this weekend. The week's kind of been extremely busy for us, so I'll be the person that I didn't plan very well for this meeting today. I apologize for that. But I can look into that and I'll find an answer for you.
I can answer that one because I've already looked. The state sets, because we're doing contractual service for the state, so it's their program for which we are doing the work. So they set everything. They give us a contractual amount to do the work on their behalf. So we don't have any way of influencing that. We can influence dog tag fees and other kinds of things along those lines that we also run out of DMV.
There's no way to charge for your labor above and beyond what they said.
Correct.
Well, as I look at these things that the mayor and his own council make this is true, that you start talking about these little add-ons here and there, they're peanuts, but if you have peanuts, you can feed the elephant. So I think we all departments kind of need to check things and see where we can get rather than put it all on to the homeowners, which is why I feel we're headed. So, thank you.
And I do you want to also address what the state did, which this is back to, the state has consistently underfunded jail operations and other things that maybe you can address.
Yeah, the state for jail gave us $360,000 to help with the process of these repairs which is huge.
it's been more like, they doubled the amount of their contract for next year, actually starting July 1, so,
Then,
they're more in line perhaps with, because the jail is their, it's a state.
yeah, the state assists us in that area. They usually, and on top of that, if I can add, with your, if you're okay, let me talk about that. As I was looking at things, trying to figure out where we're at, because again, I came in a little bit late to the game, so I'm trying to get where everything's at, where we spend money, where we can save money. Where we're not getting enough money for our services. And that was one was going to, we're doing dispatching for them, which they take a lot of our time in dispatch. They're doing Whittier and Girdwood. They were giving us most of the things, it's $25,000, but that doesn't pay for another dispatcher, that doesn't pay for our repairs, our equipment that we need, which, as you guys know, computer equipment is pretty expensive. So, with talking with Helen, I decided to up that and have, I believe, until January to decide if they're on board or not. And I believe we put it at $140,000 to continue our services.
And the number, just so you know, what's in the budget is, because we don't yet know what they're going to do, we put a modest amount in, assuming that, they would go 1 to 2 months into the new year, and so that number might dramatically increase.
I gave them till the end of January.
Yeah, I have a question. So yeah, in the budget under revenue, it has 50K for the dispatch. For the jail, it has 260. I mean, I thought it was going to be more than that.
So the state runs, state fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th, so we split it through this fiscal year and next fiscal year.
Okay, oh yeah, thank you.
Any other questions online?
No questions, thanks.
No questions here.
And then, I'm sorry, you said this already, but can you, I don't remember, you said how many officers will this fund and how many do you currently have?
I currently, with myself included, 3.
3, okay.
We're shooting to get 2, which put us at 5.
Okay, great.
And they are working very hard right now.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Right, fire MS Paul.
Also, my name is Fire Chief Madison.
So Paul, or someone, if you want to just give an overview of what is inspiring the budget for next year.
So the overview is there was an increase in personal development, pretty much specifically for the dive training and water rescue. Then there's some emergency light power for our rescue truck that is pretty much inoperable. That needs drastic repairs. Went up a little bit in equipment repairs because our vehicle equipment repairs because they're starting to age. In the category we had gone up another $1,400-$1,500 due to our flow pumps are getting extremely old, which is also what we use to fight both fires, harbor issues and stuff like there was a little bit of an increase there. And, under some equipment, our ladders are getting almost 30 years of age. They're unserviceable, and actually, if somebody actually gets hurt on them now, we would be in some serious liability. So some of our ladders need to be replaced.
How do you want to address general?
Yeah, so I think everybody can appreciate what Helen had said earlier about inflation. It's directly affecting everybody, especially departments. So going across the board, we've increased pretty much 15 to 30% in some categories just to keep up with the cost. What I've been doing over the past couple of years is negotiating contracts with our vendors, whether it be free shipping, whether it be, those not local saying we don't have any money. And some people are really receptive to it, and they do offer us some pretty good deals. Some of the equipment that the prices have increased during COVID started to really come down. We were paying $9-10 for a box of gloves pre-COVID. Then it jumped up to $30 a box. Now we're back down to that $15 to $10 range again. So the prices are coming down a little bit, but for the most part, if you can find your equipment, you're lucky to get it, and you're going to pay up the nose for it. So, any questions?
Would the salaries and wages in this include, last year we funded like a part-time, like summer?
Yes.
Right, okay, so that's in here, and then there was also the year-round position that
Yes.
was, okay.
Yeah, the 2 extra paid staff in the temp. Also, you'll see a cost increase in overtime and on-call, and that's because of that. Just due to the lack of volunteer numbers in the summertime.
Overall, you have yourself, 2 others, and then a part-time?
Yes, sir.
And I do want to admit that the salaries and wages line in this budget should have been increased there, and somehow we had a little error. So fire and EMS personnel will increase similarly to other categories around 3%. And the next budget that we present will have those corrected numbers.
Questions for this?
I guess more of a comment, and this is not something to bring forward for this budget session, but listening to you talking about equipment that's getting old, I think it would be helpful for council if you guys, within the next few months, started putting a list together of, all right, look, we're going to be using X, Y, and Z. These are kind of our costs coming up. I mean, for planning ahead. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I think in the next couple of budgets workshops, there's going to be some capital discussions. And we do have a list.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Other questions?
Thank you, Mayor. So Paul, I know you do disaster management too. What is that? Can you explain the community training, $15,000? Is that a grant match or is that?
No, I thank you for asking. So last year we did put in for a $63,000 grant to continue to train a lot of the community members along with city employees in disaster management with the ICS and to be NIMS compliant. So unfortunately we did not get the grant. So that was $63,000. So we're just asking for a little bit to continue to train our city employees and community members with ICS training.
Anybody else? Online? Don't hear anything, so thank you guys.
Thanks. Okay, the library, we'll start with Debbie. And I want to preface her arrival at the podium here to say that in the past, library and museum were in a department together called Information Services, and that included IT. And over time, we've discovered that it's probably makes sense for everybody's sake to have those as separate departments. So, and we're still migrating those parts and pieces separating the two departments and removing IT as a collective sort of citywide service into the city manager's budget. So I just want to share that with you first in case any numbers seem really odd, like dramatically lower or higher. It's part of the divorce, if you will, between these departments. So with that, Debbie is our library director. If you want to give an overview of the next year and where you're sitting, and okay.
First of all, what she said about IT was pulled out last year, basically because it was the IT expenses for the entire city. So that was pulled out. I do have there are library specific IT, especially in software, library specific software. They pulled out a little too much last year and they put back in, so I went over. The one thing that I'm asking for this year is for a part-time person. This is for evening and weekends, and fill in when other people are out. This position is currently under 10. I had quite a few ARPA grants and was able to work positions in this past year. The person who was part-time that worked in my foreign language grant has left, and so I'm running an attempt to take care of help with weekends. This year we're pulling the museum and the Cordova Center out of this budget, so the figures aren't quite what they should be in. There are some areas that will go down. Let you guys look at it and ask me questions.
So I want to just be really clear. If you look at the FY22 amended budget, it's still very large numbers. But if you look down at the museum line, there's nothing in the amended budget because those two departments were collectively together, and it was a substantial exercise to divide them apart there. But from this moment forward, we will be separating library and museum, and there'll be historical data, budget data, and expense data to reflect accurately what those two departments are doing.
I was able to reduce site repairs quite a bit because we did get all of the patron computers, all of the computers in the library were replaced completely with grants this year. So having new computers, hopefully they won't need as much in repairs, especially when you have patrons, people all year long. Have the public on their equipment.
So, Chris Gallo's question is, can we charge for the use of those computers? What is your temp cost? So you're going to put a temporary person, what would that cost?
I have a temporary person on right now, and I don't have those figures exactly what her.
The added person.
Oh, the added person is in that budget.
And what is that amount? Is it somewhere where it's singled out?
It is, I don't think.
We can get that for you. I just also want to let you guys know is one of the difficulties about temp employees is that we're allowed to keep a temp on for 6 months, and then we have to move them into a permanent position or let them go and hire someone new. So one of the difficulties with temp employees is that when you have somebody you want to keep them on, at 6 months they can't continue on as a temp. And so I think the Library Museum have done quite a dance around temp employees, as has Parks and Rec. But there is a point where we lose the value of the training and the experience if we keep trying to fund temp positions. So temp positions are not benefited, whereas of course full-time work, part-time work So there's an increased cost, but I can get that breakout for you. Happy to share that at the next work session or in advance.
I give you a fun fact. We had 441 people through the door for a Halloween trick or treat for books. We gave away, I think, a little over 200 books, and that is all funded by Friends of the Library, nonprofit. Does not come out of our budget. And despite like that, it was we do a lot of programming, and so that's, as Helen started off saying, personnel is our biggest need. We can't do after school art, trick or treat for books, story time, poetry, classes without personnel.
Well, I can appreciate that, and I also appreciate the $600,000 deficit. So for adding personnel, it'd be good just to know how much it's costing.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good questions? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Mimi can talk about the museum and the Cordova Center. And I just want to alert you to the fact that Mimi, for some reason, has decided that she might want to retire.
That's
So,
not right.
Yeah.
So,
So one of the really important conversations to have is that Mimi, I like to think of some of our jobs as Frankenstein jobs. So jobs that someone has capacity to do and they pick them up, and pretty soon they're doing many, many things that are unrelated to their core job. As museum director, Cordova Center is not a natural fit to book events and to manage the kitchen and to know the tech and to do all these sorts of things. So in this year's budget, we are acknowledging that Mimi's leaving us and that we probably need to up our game around the Cordova Center, because as tourism increases and as users start coming back into this facility, and as we struggle with tech periodically with our meetings here, that we really need to have someone dedicated to the bookings, the use of this facility, the maintenance of understanding of what the needs are to keep this building operational and make it rentable to the general public. It's a task that Mimi has taken on over the years, as has Kathy. But we're acknowledging that we're going to see Mimi leave us, and we need to be mindful of that and be ready to replace the services that she provides. So you'll see those two duties separated out, Cordova Center and the museum, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
So, like she said, I'm retiring, but so that will make us need a museum director, and it needs to be someone who has museum background. It can't be someone who just filled in because she was there for 5 or 10 years and then just took over, which I feel lacking in that. It has made the museum, I think, a harder job, the director, a harder job. But because of Kathy and the board, we've managed to keep our accreditation going, keep up all the things that the museum has to do. But it would be nice if someone who knew what they were doing could take this over. And then I also am museum assistant. So we'll need a museum director assistant because I'm my own assistant. And then we'll need someone for the front counter. So that's why there are 3. Well, there's a few more positions, but the curator, I don't think his has changed over the time. But those are the things that are going forward that we're going to be looking at and needing. Our budget is kind of small. It might look But because the Cordova Historical Society, they take a lot of the brunt of operation supplies. They take professional development, professional services. Some of the software licensing is done through them. Those kind of things are taken on by the Historical Society so that the city gets relief from all those kind of things.
But those are not reflected in this budget. Just know that if we were to fully fund the museum operation and took on the responsibilities that the Historical Society is doing currently, this budget would be larger.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Thank you, Lauren. The Cordova Center, it's becoming, are there any questions on the museum budget? The Cordova Center is becoming increasingly more and more used position. So that really needs a person that can do all those things, and decided because of all the things that are happening with our tech right now, it's really important to find somebody who's qualified to or willing to learn how to do all the tech. I'm already booked for April. There's 2 weeks in April where there are no rooms available. Sorry, council, you will not be meeting in April. No, that's not true. I put you in there, but things are going to be moving around in April, and then I'm already starting to book out until 2024 actually. So, yes.
Has the fee structure been for the Cordova?
That's on the next assignment. It hasn't been raised, no. But I did it across the board 15% because we've never raised it. The city does 5% a year, so not 50%. We don't want to shock people out of their door. So, yeah, that has been submitted to the city manager already, and it'll be looked at when we look at these schedules.
And is that in the fee schedule reflected in the revenues in this budget, or no?
No fee schedule changes have yet been reflected here.
So I think we've had this discussion before. It's unclear. Do I find a position that somebody would schedule use the Cordova Center that
And they take care of all the things you see me doing in the kitchen, all the setup, everything.
Right. So when we had the discussion before, we also asked us, what does it cost to keep the lights on? What does it cost us to have a function down here? We're going to get those numbers and then compare them with what we're charging. So basically, if nothing else, we need to be breaking. Have we broke down those costs? Do we know what it costs us to have a function?
We're going to be looking at those numbers with the fee schedule conversation coming up, because she has put together a fee schedule. We also, it's not so much the cost to do it, but it's the amount of traffic we get. And it's sort of like butts and seats. You only get revenue for what you can attract into the building. And one of the issues is making sure that we have a building that is usable by multiple folks and make it available and have all the amenities that folks need to feel good about renting the space. So we'll have a discussion at a work session with fee schedule and other revenue opportunities.
Okay, because that's basically the same response we got from the last manager. So we've been talking about this since this building opened. So we probably need to get those numbers before we start saying, yeah, let's hire somebody. It kind of needs. I'm not putting it on you.
I'm just telling you.
You work hard enough.
I'm.
You know, this is.
It needs to be. It needs to be, or there's nobody to do it. Nobody, literally. You might not have a meeting.
Yeah.
So you have to. You want to use the building. You want to make building friendly and accommodating and making it pay for itself. I totally understand. I totally understand that, and that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you go above and beyond, but it's kind of staff's role now to step in and bring us the numbers so we can make decisions.
And we'll have that for you.
Anything else?
I was just gonna go back history-wise a little bit too, because this was built into the business plan, this position, and I believe that post-COVID, we will be able to actually make enough revenue to cover this position. It's very, very difficult to break down the amount of electrical. We can do propane, and that's hardly a pittance. But the room, the cost of room, what we can calculate very easily is man hours. The number of man hours in terms of Robin's time, Mimi's time, the temp hires, the janitorial. Those are something we can put our hands on. There's a lot of times multiple things going on in the building, so I have it very difficult to extrapolate what utility costs are for the facility. So I think overall we've just been trying to make the facility as fuel and energy efficient as possible in so many ways. And so to me, this position is critical to the success of continuing the conferences and meetings that we're having. And I just cannot say enough how important it is that we separate out the museum and the Cordova Center, because Mimi is correct. She has very little time for the museum, and that's why we have volunteers and been writing grants to try and cover.
So I guess, just so I'm clear again, so how are there new positions in this budget, or are you proposing that we're going to be adding?
Well, because the Cordova Center is new, it will be new, that is a new position. The director would replace me. I'm asking for one other part-time.
So the net gain would be one more part-time position for the museum.
For the museum.
For the museum.
Yes.
And a full-time to operate the Cordova Center.
Yes, at this point. If that person, hopefully that person will be checked out and then it could be.
One of the things we've been talking about is how to serve this building appropriately. And one of the things we struggle with is tech. We have a tech position in my management budget. And we're trying to figure out if there's a way to carve that tech position into a piece that would be attached to the tech with this building, whether it's the sound, the lighting in the theater, or the AV tech here in this room. So anybody who uses a facility, the person who coordinates the facility that we would hire could potentially be the person who understands the tech for any of the spaces in this building. And so we're really actively looking at creative ways of funding this position with existing positions that are vacant and figuring that out. So we'll have more information about that, but we're really mindful of trying to be very cautious and careful about the addition of staff and making things work effectively.
I guess that's where I'm trying to keep it totally. Right now we have a half-time library, so then we're also proposing another one full-time position and one more half-time position. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. One full-time and two half-time positions.
Yeah, just because you got to bargain for 4 years. Because I'm doing it all for one salary.
Well, you've been around a lot for 4 years. You've been bargaining your whole time. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate everything you do.
Melvin, would you like to come and speak to facilities? No, he doesn't want to, but.
Can I chime in on this for just a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So just in thinking about the whole staffing for the Cordova Center, to follow up on what Kathy mentioned with the business plan, you know, originally the idea behind the Cordova Center was to operate it to hold winter conferences, to attract meetings from outside of town where people are coming in to hold their professional meetings. And there might be 15 people, it might be 20, it might be 50, and all of those people are staying in local lodging and eating in local restaurants. So they're generating money in town in terms of sales tax and bed tax beyond what we are looking at right now for this immediate. I mean, that revenue shows up in a different line item. So I guess I just want to say, you know, we're trying to kind of parse out the cost for operating the building, and the returns on that are coming in the form of sales tax and bed tax. So I just want to make sure that that's taken into account for whatever decisions we make. And I also want to make sure that we, that the function for marketing the Cordova Center is included somewhere, you know, whether the city does it or the chamber does it, but somebody needs to be sending out packets about the building to, you know, the top 5 or 10 groups a year in advance, because people are booking 6 months, if not a year out in advance. So we need to be marketing the building to these groups also. And so that's a function that I would love to see either be done at the chamber or at the city. But that was the whole idea, you know, keep it full in the fall, the winter, and the spring, I think, for these professional meetings. And so I realize that that's somewhat of an extra cost, but the idea was that there would be a multiplier effect and it would be generating additional revenues. And I just want to thank Mimi for what she has done for the last, I'm not sure, X number of years. I heard her say 4, but maybe it's been more than that. But every event that I've worked at there, you know, we've done the Wild Harvest Feast and helped out at other events, and Mimi is there to set up, and she is the last one to leave the building at the end of the day, in addition to whatever she does, you know, regularly during the day. So thank you so much for helping to make the Cordova Center what it is for our community. Thanks.
And just for council and the public that are listening to this, I'm going to be asking questions. I want to make sure that everybody's clear what we're doing for staffing. And you know, we went through 4 meetings and a lot of debate just to hire 1 police officer. We really drilled down just to get 1 police officer. So we need to talk about where we're going with this. And so if I ask a question, doesn't mean I don't support it, but everybody needs to understand what we're doing here.
Okay, thank you. Melvin, your turn. And Melvin, I want to let you know that he's wearing interim public works director hat right now, as Sam is taking a well-deserved vacation. But he definitely is in charge of the facility maintenance department and can speak to public works to a certain extent, but we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members. So basically, let me start with the facility utilities. So just like what everybody's been talking about, most of our increase because it's due to the gas prices going up. So a little bit more money is needed to Cordova Center, public safety building, the Chamber of Commerce. So it's just also the propane, of course, just be used for the events. Reason I'm not just because now that the Cordova Center is going to be opening up more and more events are being scheduled, we decided to raise it up a little bit. Not very much, just enough. So that's it for the utilities part. Go with the maintenance facility. Then it goes back again to having, having COVID. With the COVID going on before, I was able to fund most of the operating supplies with those funds. But now that we're back to being normal, everything else is being expensive, and I need to start purchasing them again. I was able to stop them before when we started with COVID, but now that we're starting to settle down now I gotta really have to purchase most of those items with my team. That goes with maintenance, operating supplies, custodial supplies. So most of that stuff increased over the past few years. So that's why most of the stuff, there's some increases on our facility maintenance budget. And also that also goes with the man hours. That's also increased as well. This is for facility maintenance. If you guys have any questions, I can answer them.
So, a little bit of discussion we've had here, talked about how we judge the cost of them. So, when we leave here tonight, let's say we leave here at 9 o'clock, is this building go down, we'll have a call sleep mode, we lower the temperature, the lights go off?
Yeah.
Alright, so then if there's a program going, let's say we're gonna theater or whatever it is, the heat stays on, the lights stay on. So, I mean, I understand there's a little bit of difficulty, but I don't know if you can, is there a way you can break out your cost per hour to operate this facility? I know that's kind of tough, but we should be able to come up with a number like, look, this is an added cost, we need to recoup that.
Right.
And it needs to be, just like, what do they call that, the surcharge on the gas, fuel surcharge. It's gotta go along with our costs as they rise. So I think I don't know who the one who can come up with that, but
with all the invoices comes in, I can try to figure out how much we use at a certain event, and then for that month, I try to break it down that way. And I'll tell the difference what was happening, because it will affect, like you said, the air handlers are going to be running, the heat's going to be running. At a certain time, when everybody's gone in the building, that gets cut off. So, and that slows down. But, and also the other thing too with that is, for the past 2 years, we have to increase the airflow just to adjust for the COVID event. We had to make sure that air is circulating the whole time in and out. We cannot stay. And that goes back to the heating. That's why our heating cost is way up there, because we're just basically sucking all the air out, taking clean air and just sucking everything else out. And that's been going for a long time. But now that we're starting to settle down, we're starting to drop those costs and then the product consumption as well. I'm hoping it gets better that way. So I'm slowly doing that stuff, and that goes back to certain things that we did through COVID, finding out that we should be replacing filters more often than usual. That's the other thing too. I usually just change it twice a year. But now, after doing it every quarter, it's time to be replaced no matter what, whether there's COVID or not, because that's starting to get stuffy. So that's an additional cost that we need to add as well.
Yeah, even if it's 60 degrees in daylight out, there's still a lot of cost in keeping this building open.
And right now, I don't know if you guys can feel it, it's a little cooler than it should be. I know it's fine. But yes, we want to keep things moving pretty quickly.
You want anybody falling asleep?
Exactly. You don't want to.
And I was just going to ask where the elevator maintenance is. What line item do you know? I know, we love the elevator.
Elevator's a fun ride until it breaks down. So that usually just things happen. That's the other thing that I have to. We already switched contractors, vendors with that, and saved a lot of money. I was so happy. but then things started happening back to back. It shut down, we don't have the parts, person had to be here longer while they were waiting. They're doing all this stuff elsewhere, but they're getting charged. So that is something that we did not plan for, and I am planning for that at this point to cover that, because I'm already way over on that equipment repair just for that, and that's including the maintenance already. We've already scheduled those as a contract. So I don't know how you guys they have it. So, you guys notice the signs. To hold it, push the buttons, everything else, and what you're trying to do is by cleaning it, make sure everything goes well. It's so high tech that you tap it, breaks. It's not a good thing, but that's when it works, and it's just it's not like before it's heavy duty stuff. So it's so high tech that little things that you do, you jump, you might just trigger that little alarm and try not to do that. Because people do that for
I always see more.
Do you want to speak a little bit to streets?
Yes. I don't know much about streets, but I know that they have holes. There's that. There's that, and we are really trying really hard to get them patched up as quickly as possible. So, streets. Streets, they are a small crew and added two personnel with them. One new driver and a new mechanic as well. And most of this stuff reflects again with the fuel increases. And I know that one of the things that they added is the professional development. And that goes back to sales as well. Most of our professional development has been taken up for the past 2 years, but we're trying to put that back in again, especially when we have 2 new employees that were just added. They're learning and they need to learn more stuff through education and stuff for their jobs. We did get a whole bunch of other trainings through grant and be able to get basically most of the public works employees. We had anthem trainings, disease control training. So most of that stuff, it was actually all grant work through the state, and that was a lot because we were able to get some of the city as well, including CPR and stuff. So that was we were able to save money for that one. And because nobody traveled, we had an instructor come down here and teach the city for that training. I guess that's kind of what I know about the streets right now, is that they have 2 new employees, and basically most of their stuff is just because of the increases in fuel costs and shipping.
And so they down at the city shop, their used fuel oil burner is still working.
It is. They actually they're running it. So we're burning waste oil. They do have to add a little bit of fuel just because it was more difficult, but as soon as they got a little bit of diesel mixed in with it, they were able to burn it. So we are burning it.
Yeah, I just bring that up as a huge shout out because they are literally saving us thousands and thousands of dollars with that system. And it makes for a great work environment for them down there too. And I know the school also has a hope that they're using theirs, but I think you do.
That's why I said that I was working with them last week and trying to get everything running, and Josh was able to get it running. I was able to call Tony. I was able to call Tony and have his staff come down and help us out, pump up the waste oil tank and add some diesel just to get everything stirred up, and we got fuel going and we got heat there now.
And that's a big asset to the community.
Thank you.
Let's move on to parks. I know we're getting close on time here. I hope we can just get through Parks and Rec and then get to our regular council meeting. We can resume. I want to make sure that folks here can leave.
Thanks everybody. I'll start with the expense side and then we'll talk about it. We are also advocating for increased personnel and currently running our parks maintenance on 2 people. We've only just employed the second. 13 properties and 2 facilities to maintain. We're going to need it. So we need more people to help us maintain what we've got. The other side of the personnel issue is, again, our facilities, in terms of pool and Bedaki, mainly Bedaki, are running on temporary staff, not sustainable. People have to hire new people, retrain them. As the city manager said, they can only be employed 6 months. Not the way we need to work. So we do need to look at more permanent people, so we can help us. When I ask us for a part-time recreation assistant, we can plug some of our hours. And if we are wanting to offer a high level of service or higher level of service, being open consistent hours, we need people to do that. I would love us, and it's only a dreamer's point, to operate 7 days a week. It's not possible for the current staff. Most people recreate over the weekend. We can't staff 2 days. Put a plan in place to work towards that. Other expenses, our parks maintenance, I've increased some numbers there to actually get some funding to start fixing what we've got. As I said, we are maintaining things to a particularly good level. We haven't for a number of years, and unfortunately things are coming home to roost. So, for example, you'll see things like operating supplies, although it's not broken down in the budget in front of you for parks maintenance. It's things like gravel, crushed rock, concrete, fertilizer, grass seed, painting materials, some flowers and vegan plants, to do some beautification of some of our areas. Again, lumber supplies, irrigation, plumbing, just basic park things, quality up. Again, you'll see another jump in other repairs. That type of budget, including, so it's not broken down there, but just general parks, grounds, fencing, maintenance. When we had fences which were destroyed at the multi-purpose field, no money to rebuild that fence. So we need that sort of stuff. So we're reactive at the moment. We're not maintaining stuff, we're not replacing stuff with the bikes. Again, some more money around picnic area developments. We've started a piece of work again at the multi-use field. Flushed out an area, but we've stopped. We haven't got any more money to move on with that. Again, improving our signage at our parks and on our trails. Actually having some is a good start. Getting some more money for things like the memorial plaques. Going up in cost. We need to pass that cost on. That needs to be restricted in the expense. Any questions around the parks maintenance? So I guess one thing I'll also mention is that we recover no cost for that. We have no revenue which offsets park maintenance. So we don't charge for use of our parks in any way, shape or form. We actually, sometimes we don't actually maintain the park. Take the Little League competition there, the ones who are out there marking the diamonds and maintaining diamonds. We're not doing that. It's something we should be doing. No questions on that. I'll move on to a couple of the other areas. Other things under the Parks and Rec, I'll put some money in for just under software and licenses. We need better software to run our operations. The current gym membership software is literally that. It doesn't allow us to do facility bookings. It doesn't allow us to do recreation programs or people registering for things. It's simply a membership option. So I'm looking doing some business cases at the moment to look at some future software which should help us improve, help us build our business, help us bring more revenue in. Darky, again, same story as everybody else, costs are going up. We're going backwards in that building too. We need to start doing some work and resourcing that work. So the other things we put in, things like professional services. So at the moment, my staff, so are both, one is, Tim School is a really handy guy, but he's not an electrician, he's not a plumber. We need to get expertise in where jobs are beyond our skill set. At the moment, those jobs aren't getting done. Recently, the changing room floor in Darby is sinking. It's literally soft. So it's going to be a big job. Pulling it up to see the extent of that damage. It's beyond our capability and capacity to do that. So part of this operational budget will obviously be another discussion on capital budget. Some of those things will have to fit into the capital budget. Improvement rather than repairing something. Again, here, so increased energy bills. That's really evident at the pool. We're on target this year to spend $100,000 on heating oil. It's $7,000 a month. So we need to look at ways we can reduce our energy costs, be more efficient. There was an energy audit done in 2016, which recommended a whole lot of improvements. None of them were really implemented. I can't answer that. So, yeah, we need to look at recovery. Again, capital have a number of options which we find which could come with some interesting prices. Sure. I guess the other side of the equation is revenue. I've given a little bit of consideration to that. I guess that was my discussion last week. But hey, our costs are going to go up. How are we going to bridge some of that gap? Because we need to bring in more revenue. That's the reality. So yeah, how do we structure our fees? We're only getting user fees through the pool and Darky. It doesn't need to cover the entire department. So yeah. So those the figures again representing the revenue side of the equation. I'm sure there's some little room in there. I've had one session with my Parks and Rec Commission around my thoughts on proposed fees for next year. They gave me some feedback, they gave me some stuff which they didn't like. That's good. But yeah, the reality is we need to try and maintain a level that we're happy with the amount of user pays. Parks and Rec is going to be 100%. So yeah, questions. I've got the questions.
I wasn't clear on, you're looking for two full-time staff.
Yeah, so an additional parks maintenance worker, so one additional worker to make a team of 3, and an additional part-time, sorry, there's another, it's an additional part-time lifeguard, so we can have consistency and trying to keep people open at regular hours. We don't have necessarily a problem of trained lifeguards in this town. We've got a problem of people wanting to work the hours that are required. And also an additional part-time recreation aid at the Darky to help maintain hours.
So one full-time maintenance, a half-time lifeguard.
Yep, and half-time recap.
Half-time
recreation aid. I guess one comment I'll make on people. We are about people. You know, people are important. People are about why our department exists. We exist for people. So I guess my philosophy is I want to invest in the right people as well. So people really come to work and invest it in actually making change. Right? So I want to recruit people who are really positive about what we do. And it's just not a job. So that's going to take time to find the right people. And a vacancy for a recreation program specialist open almost a year now. We've been through some recruitment, but we've had a mismatch around what people want to be paid versus what we're offering. So,
there.
Yeah. Time.
Questions? I guess another comment. This doesn't include any of our current staff who weren't here. City manager wasn't here, but you have an energy audit in 2016 and that was followed up on. We were told Parks and Rec is running great. We're leaving 6% sales tax on the table for years and years and years. And now what I'm hearing is a lot of maintenance that hasn't been kept up on, and the question is why. So now we're sound, we have to pay the piper on this. So this gets back to the community comments that, I mean, you've heard from the schools that don't allow a younger generation to come out. We're going to have to maintain these parks. So I thank you for what you're doing and your honesty. And be told how it is, and we have to see if we can find the money.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, I think there's a few departments out there. I don't think there's anyone in the room that we've overlooked. Right, the enterprise funds will be doing the next work session, and then the city manager and city clerk, we can do, if we have time at the end of this meeting, if you guys want to continue the conversation after the meeting adjourns.
Okay. So we're recessing this, and then we're gonna take it up after the regular.
Comments? We're not in the comments yet. This is a workshop. So we'll recess the workshop, and then we'll reconvene the workshop after our regular meeting. Will be in order. Yep. What you got?